All right, so I'm going to talk briefly about Stuart Wilde. Um, I discovered him probably around 2000, 2002, somewhere between there. I've mentioned before I've got like some new age aunt and uncles. Well, one new age aunt and one new age uncle. And one of the things that she'd come across was this Stuart Wilde guy. She actually went and met him at one of his seminars that he was doing he was in New Mexico, I think. She said it was a pretty cool experience, you know. I think she should have stayed on his path, but she got diverged into other things. I'm not going to talk about what she believes in now, but um, anyway, that's how I got introduced to him. So she had books and VHS videos. So I watched Warrior's Wisdom, and he has a money video too that I've got that I'll upload about mastering money. And so I watched those videos and I read a couple of his books. I really only read the one book, but it actually made a difference. If you actually really listen to what he's saying and understand what he's saying, um, it's about like just sort of living fluidly and knowing that everything is kind of already there for you. You just have to know it is and just go for it. He talks a lot about living in the now and stuff too, right? Which is important. I've sort of talked about that. It's kind of funny. I went over that video again because I haven't watched it in a long time, the one that I'm going to be putting up after this. And a lot of the things that I was already saying, he says himself. So it must have stuck. It must work. I must believe in it. And that's why I'm going to put him up there. Now, some people might not like him, might think he's new age. I don't think he is, even though he ended up in the new age movement. I think that what he does is he just takes a lot of old wisdom, mostly from the New Testament, honestly, if you really listen to what he's saying, and he rebrands it because, well, I think a lot of people have sort of fallen out of love with the church, obviously, and because of that, they don't really have a chance to go get the wisdom that you're supposed to actually find in there. And that's part of the reason why the church is failing, is it doesn't really maybe help people the way that it could or should, but that's always been the way. Nothing new there. If you really want to change or, you know, find God or your spiritual self or upgrade your spiritual self, you know, you kind of have to do the work on your own anyway, which is a lot of what he talks about. Like, he doesn't give a lot of direct answers, but he gives a lot of inspiration and things to think about. The reason for that is because he doesn't know you, right? He's talking to a million people. And, you know, the ultimate goal is to get you to go into that 40 days in the desert yourself, figure your own self out, heal your own shit, and then discover, you know, what your power is and what your strength is, or what your talent is what the Bible calls it. Everyone will have their own talents. And when you discover all of that, you'll know the answer. You'll know it when it comes to you. Then, you know, you just go and do that. It's pretty simple. It's like chop wood, carry water kind of idea from the Tao, right? Like, you just have to just do and be and do things now, and don't dwell too much in the past or the future, and you know, deal with it as it comes. So I bring up his focus on the individual because it's not designed to be like selfish, like the Satanic Bible wants you to be, like, sort of, it seems more like a selfish thing, do what thou wilt, right? It's not like that. It's about like how to fix you, get the love back into you again that was taken from you by the system, and to make you more powerful so that you can be put back in again, and then you can really start to make a difference in everything around you when you're stronger. And it's a good thing for relationships too. If you find that you're always in like bad relationships, take that time to step out, examine what it was like growing up with your parents or without your parents, or whatever that might look like for you. And you know, you can recognize the patterns in the relationship, and you bob out, you heal yourself, you come back, you make yourself strong, and then you'll be able to pull a relationship to you that's good. So there's a lot of benefit to this. It's not just a one-track thing. Now, he does talk about a couple of things that you can do. He talks about investing. What else does he talk about? Oh, just leaving anything that kills you. There's no point in sticking around. You don't have to be bound to a job that kills you. You can leave and go get another job. A lot of people feel stuck where they are. I used to work for UPS, and this one lady at the Walmart, she was always in a horrible mood every time I showed up there, and I would do everything I could to try to make her life look a little bit more positive, and she just wouldn't have it. She was bound to sticking there and being miserable. I said, why don't you just go work at a flower shop or something like that right now? You know, you don't have to be here in the back of this warehouse doing whatever. You can go and smell the posies every day for the same money, right? But she didn't want to hear that. She wanted to be miserable for some reason. You know, so some people you can't help too. I mean, I've said that. Really, this isn't about you trying to help other people so much as it is to try to help yourself. And then when you make a better version of yourself and put yourself back out there again, you're just automatically going to help people, right? No man's an island, so to speak. Even people who work alone, they're still serving community somehow, some way. So you find whatever your skill is and you go for it. And he also talks about like self-ownership. So, I mean, if you can start your own business, even if you do have to work for some kind of corporation or another company, even whatever, small town company, but whatever, pays good, you know, take it upon yourself to try to find something else that you can do to expand your own worth. You don't have to be subjected to your job's, you know, and pay by the end of the year or every 2 weeks. You know, you can live outside of that. One of the things that I'm doing right now, this is also an investment, right? So I'm out here at my garden where I'm going to be putting it in today. And it's an investment. Now, I've talked about there's a fear aspect to it, like, oh my God, what if something happens to the supply chain or whatever? You want to be looked after. So that's scary. It's negative. We're going to try to remove negative thoughts and thought patterns from things, because when you operate out of that, you're going to make mistakes. It's not a good thing to run in. So think about wealth. So, I mean, you know, there's like some of my wealth right there. Those are the potatoes that were left over from the ones I planted last year. There's a variety of them. There's some butterballs. There's some purple Russian, some red delicatessen, and then some of my seed packets are blowing away. But got a couple kinds of cucumbers. Got some, like, these beets are good because you just chop them up and they go right in the jar, easy for pickling. I'll be pickling peppers if they work out. It's kind of experimental. Sometimes peppers don't grow in this country very well, but sometimes they do. Depends how hot it is. Dill to flavor everything. Fresh dill's the best. Carrots, of course, to go also with pickling and canning. Bought some golden beets for something fucking to try different this time. Another brand of cucumber. Whew, and the stuff that's blowing away on me. Really light seeds. More dill. This is different. This is fern dill, and this is fern leaf dill. It just grows tall stalk. This stuff just grows like a bush. And some garlic chives. Oh, and some mixed onions too, right? So I just sort of plant it all around. Oh, and I've also got, where is it now? Well, it doesn't really matter, but I've also got some peas and beans and corn all soaking so that they plant better, so they germ better. And I'll be doing like a Three Sisters type grow, where, if you don't know what that is, it's something the Iroquois Indians were doing. It was, you plant your corn, and then you plant beans, and the beans climb the corn stalk so it gets them off the ground. And what the beans do is they actually pull nitrogen out of the atmosphere, and then they put it right back into the soil, so the nitrogen helps feed everything. And then they usually plant squash with it too, because the leaves on the squash will help protect the ground from drying out, so it helps retain moisture. You don't really have to do that depending on your situation. Like, this garden gets fed with gray water from the house, so it always has a certain amount of moisture to it. There's good clay underneath all of the ground out here. You got a couple of feet of soil and then clay, so it holds it all really well. It doesn't let it just keep on seeping down until it's 6 feet down and there's no more good top moisture. So it's like an investment, right? People talk about gold and silver. You'll be able to buy things if everything went down. If you own physical gold and silver, that's fine. I'll take your gold and silver for some of my potatoes, you know? So what's really wealthy? What's true wealth? Health is wealth too, you know? People should be trying to do more for their physical health. I definitely need to. I've been in atrophy for like a long time now, and I'm fat and out of shape. Grew an extra chin over the winter. That's all right. Summer's here. Time to start getting out and doing shit. He talks also, to get back to Stuart, he talks a little bit about, this video is from 1984, the one that I'm going to be putting up. And a lot of the things he says in there are really true still. He talks about the bank, sort of tongue-in-cheek style. He actually talks about how the communists replaced the Tsar, and that it was a worse thing, that every time there's a revolution, it always ends up being worse for everybody. So he knows what's up, but he doesn't really let on. 1984 was a different time. I don't think you wanted to talk too much about that kind of stuff, because again, no one would listen to you. Again, if you listen to what he says, he sounds like Jesus. The way he talks, it's mostly like that. He replaces like the word God with the word universe. just to make it more palatable. And he talks about life force as something that you want to live in and take a part of. And, you know, I mean, Jesus always talks about the life from his mouth, the bread from his mouth, the water from his mouth, right? Which is the words, the wisdom. And that's what kind of makes you powerful, is to have good food for thought. And then, you know, you can get into the observation and practice of faith as well. And when you start to learn that it actually does work, when you let down your guard and let it work, it becomes a pretty amazing thing. Sometimes it can be so overwhelming you don't even really want to stick your hand in it for too long. It's like it's intense, but it's real. And you know, despite all the things that are happening in the world right now, nothing ever goes completely one way. So, you know, I'm not expecting anything really drastic to happen anytime soon, although there's a lot of things that are boiling right now. So if you didn't get a chance to get yourself a garden this year, there's still time to get out there, depending on who you are and where you are. If you wanted to go do it too, I highly recommend it. Like I said, it's really rewarding too. But, you know, you end up taking responsibility for yourself by doing it. And it's a good time to go and maybe think and reflect about things. One thing I can't help but think about is I always think about Cain and Abel. Every time I go and plant my garden, you're out there and you start thinking about Cain and what he did. And that God still actually honored him despite doing that to his brother or whatever, right? Which I think is kind of like, well, okay, let's put it this way. Jesus talks about there's two different gods in the Bible. So it's like to take the whole Bible as the word of God in a superstitious way is wrong, because even Jesus refutes parts of the Bible himself too, right? So you have to use your discernment on things. So when you sit back and think about your individuality and the things that Stuart's going to talk about, if this is a path you think you're interested in going on, then you're going to have to maybe like humble yourself a little bit to allow that stuff to come in and just listen and let it happen. There's a lot of information. I would recommend watching that video a couple times if you're interested in what he has to say. So anyway, too, it's like, there's no doubt that the world's socialism is coming, okay? It can't be fucking stopped. It's currently, you know, got all the chips on the table right now. All the risk pieces are in place. And it's gonna come. So it's kind of gonna be like living in high school, where it's like, if you didn't want to fucking live exactly by the rules, you're gonna have to figure out a way around it. You know, some of the stuff they want to do, I think, is just ridiculous. Like getting rid of meat. Like, I don't understand. They talk about just trying to re-centralize everything so that, you know, everything makes sense and it doesn't have to be shipped as far to cut down on CO2 or whatever they're doing there. And, you know, so why can't you just centralize, you know, animals more, just instead of having one big farm that distributes to all over the place? Have more farms that are spread out more and still give people the things that they want, right? So if you know, you end up relying on the system, if that's the way they design it, then you're going to be stuck on what they want you to have. So, you know, it's a good viable thing to go find like a local butcher. There's a lot of new local butchers around here now compared to what there used to be, who grow, slaughter, and butcher all of their own cows, you know, like just 10 minutes right outside of my own town, there's one, you know, and it wasn't there before, and there's more. They're all over the place. I think that maintaining your own diet, what you want to eat, is important for the future too. It's going to be important to your own health and wealth. You need complex proteins to think well, is kind of my thoughts. So just relying on plant protein, that isn't going to be the best. Oh yeah, now get back to the Iroquois method. We'll see how that goes. I don't know how it's going to work. I've never done it before. It actually ends up creating complete proteins. Like I said, animal protein is best. I do believe that still. But for as far as plant protein goes, it was kind of a miracle thing in a sense to happen, that the Indians were using beans and corn together and then eating them together too, because that actually creates complete proteins, which is why the Aztecs did so well. That was most of what their food was beans and corn mixed together, right? Tortillas, and adding beans to tortillas and stuff. So, I mean, it's good to have knowledge of your food and stuff like that too. He talks a little bit about the ozone layer in that video. bear in mind it's 1984 at the time, and he probably in his later years, I'm just guessing, but probably started to look at that stuff as just like fear porn, like, can't give it up at this point, guys, kind of thing. And a lot of what he's trying to do is to get you fearless, right? Like, you're all gonna die. I don't know how much you think about that. So it's like, no matter what's happening in the world, when you die, you know, what are you gonna want to look back on your life like? I've kind of talked about that before too. And if your life isn't going well right now, it's probably because there's some kind of fears and inhibitions that are keeping it from going the way that it should. And so that's really the point. And to me, that's what the point of what Jesus' teaching was too, if I'm going to be honest, is to make you fearless, so that you don't fear death. He gives you this idea of immortality or whatever, that you can just follow his way and just go right to the end and cross right through the veil like nothing ever happened. Literally just like going through a veil. Imagine passing through a curtain and like, poof, there you are. It's like now you're in the spirit world or whatever, you know? It's that fearlessness that'll save everybody, to be able to stand up to the bank, stand up to the government, all that shit when it comes. I don't think it's gonna come right away, but we'll see what things look like as inflation goes up and shit. Again, if you look after yourself enough, you don't have to worry about society looking after you as much. I feel sorry for a lot of people who are basically at the mercy in every way, shape, and form of society, because I have the ability to at least feed myself without worrying about grocery stores. You know, I have an opportunity to step outside of their control system a little bit. Oh yeah, and love is going to be the biggest lesson through that video too, really. That's what the life force is like pure unconditional love. Like, so when he talks about my father isn't your father in John 8:44, he's separating the concept of who God is and who God isn't in the Bible, right? I was kind of starting to talk about that. Of course, my ramblings get me all over the place, but so even Jesus disputes parts of the Bible himself and tries to rectify it. So you got to use your discernment, get around the superstition, and come to the realization that God is actually pure love, right? It's like, he's such a gentleman that he'll give you anything you ask for. So unfortunately, if your mind gets into a negative state and you start thinking, he talks about this in the video, if you start thinking in terms of struggle and work hard and all this and don't worry, you'll get it. It'll come to you. It'll materialize for you. And when you've had enough, you know, you'll ask for something else and it'll come too. There's no doubt about that. It'll come too. I've been through all kinds of ups and downs, and I've learned that lesson over and over again. I'd say I've even tested it just to see if that is the truth of the theory, and I think that it is. We'll talk more about it as we go on. I had a bunch of things in my head that I wanted to talk about because that video has a lot of information in it. But Stuart Wilde was based and red-pilled way back in '84, before those terms were even a thing. I think that a lot of people watching it now are really going to understand what he's saying compared to the people that are sitting in that audience in 1984. So, I don't know, without any further ado, I guess I'm just going to cut off right now, watch that, and there's just going to be continuous talking about all the stuff that's in there. And I think I'm going to start getting back into trying to do book reading more as well. It gives me an opportunity to read books because I don't have it in me to sit there and read all the time about certain things. There's so many things on my plate. It's like, what do you go for? But if I sit around and start reading chunks of books for the channel, then it forces me to sit down and just read, do something I want to do more of anyway. And it shares it with you, and whether you like it or not, want to take it or not, is up to you. I'm just going to keep doing it. I said I lost all my material off my computer there last week, and there's two choices. You can just give up or just keep trying, right? Let's keep trying. There's a value to repetition. It's one thing to hear something once and sort of believe that you know it and feel good about it at the time, but you know, you're already pre-programmed for a lot of things because of your history and your training that you've had in your own life, that, you know, repetition becomes necessary in order to keep your mind frame in a good place and know what's important and keep focused on it and keep going towards it. So anyway, yeah, that's good enough, I guess. I better get planting this friggin' garden. It's sure windy out. I could see rain coming tonight, and that'll be good too. Get the seeds in and then get some water on them. One more little aside, actually, since I'm talking about weather and water and stuff. If you want to know, maybe some of you already know this, there's like the concept of Mother Earth to begin with is that things grow up out of the earth. And when you talk about Baal or El, ancient god, he was god of storm, so clouds and rain. So when God rumbles, brings the rain, waters the ground, things grow up out of the ground. This is like your Mother Earth and Father God idea of bringing together creation. That's a lot of Mesopotamian God structuring to begin with on how it looked. It's kind of almost seems like God was even modified at parts in the Bible where he goes from being more like El or Baal and then moving on to something different. And again, Jesus makes a differentiation. He seems to say that there's more than one God in there if you listen to what he says in John 8:44. So you got to use your discernment, find out which is the one of love and which is the one of punishment and discipline. Evil, essentially, but I mean, it definitely comes with a heavy amount of punishment and discipline. So yeah, anyway, like I say, I'll have more things to say about all this stuff as time goes along. I'm just gonna get to planting my garden now. I know I keep rambling. Ramble-geddon. All right, peace out.